Thank you very much for having me. I'm talking today about Armando Brasini. So, Armando Brasini, exceptionally dynamic and visionary Italian architect whose work spans both architectural and urban scales. Prolific output includes numerous master plans, major public buildings, significant projects across Rome, other Italian cities, and internationally. Buildings are consistently large in scale, very centrally located in cities, and also wide range of typologies, museums, basilica, university facilities, a bridge. Despite substantial body of work, Brasini remains largely absent from mainstream 20th century architectural surveys and even from contemporary guides of architecture, for example, particularly in Rome, which is unexpected. In English language scholarship, he re-entered disciplinary attention when Robert Venturi referenced him in Complexities and Contradiction in Architecture, 1966. However, very little followed until the three major, more extensive studies by Professor Stephen Sims. Italian scholars, including Mario Pisani, Professor Consoli, Professor Bilancioni, Elisabetta Placida, who was for years a curator of Brasini's archive, have produced substantial and important research. However, this material still lacks international visibility. Recent years noticed renewed interest, including him for the first time becoming part of modern guide through architecture of Rome that I have with me and would love to share with you. And also new studies coming from Spain. And we saw Brasini today in David's presentation and in Luca's presentation. And also there is one PhD in German language just completed and submitted. So hopefully we will have a chance to learn more about this architect. Our contribution, Jacob's and mine, collaboration, Jacob is practicing architect and I am architect who teaches architectural history to architecture students in the schools of architecture. We aim to kind of contribute with maybe architectural problem solving of Brasini's architectural corpus and examine his relevance for contemporary practice. The archival material that we have, and I kind of plan to show you some that are accessible online, but maybe we don't have time for all of that. Anyway, archival material reveals highly disciplined and prolific design process. Brasini drew a lot, vast quantity and quality of drawings, beautiful pencil sketches, expressive charcoal sketches, precise ink, both perspectives, orthographic studies, and all marked by strong and confident line work. Also produced physical models, large scale, plaster, bronze models, and then later from that developed his architectural drawings that he adjusted through numerous iterations, depends on client's wishes, but always committed to overall massing of the project. So, architect who worked as an architect, and through three Rome projects, we will try to show or examine three Brasini's design strategies. All three are three-dimensional, spatial, architectural design problem solving, while at the same time, we do see use of classical language in his work. First one we call contextual spatial dynamics. Sites are often, almost always, irregular site, topographically challenging, problematic site. Second, complex historical context, significant existing heritage, and he, as an architect, was highly responsive to complex site conditions. In Inai Palace, as we are approaching the building, we see that it was designed to be seen in different perspectives. Overall composition has two very distinct volumes. Each volume addresses two different scales. Tall and strong volume, made of brick, upper part, addresses the distant view. Has double height loggia as a large-scale gesture. The lower volume clearly steps forward and it responds to the closer view while providing also respectful connection with the adjacent historical villa. If we take a look more closely, the axis of the lower volume is shifted from that of the upper to respond to the narrow front and the axis of the street which leads towards it. Then he builds his composition. First, concave entrance hall in Doric columns, giant order columns. I won't describe, we don't have time. You read architecture well even without my explanation. Then next one, triumphal arch-like facade, double height loggia, now Corinthian columns, giant order, and then at the back, facade itself, where most windows actually are. These three elements interact really well at a distance without really reaching a conventional perspective agreement. There is visible lack of unity basically between the parts. We have horizontal shift which separates the two, but the facade overall appears unified when viewed in its context, probably exactly because of the constraints of the urban setting. Elements of classical architecture can be now traced back to Renaissance for sure, to me, Michelangelo, material combination, and especially some specific unusual detailing. Bernini, of course, because of the curvature, maybe Borromini, but the most important for us here is that local symmetries are carefully maintained within an overall asymmetrical composition, which shows complex vitality and dynamism that is characteristic of this architect. Let's look at the second spatial design device. Again, duality, scaling coherence present, but he's here having something else to resolve and also reaching back deeper into antiquity of Rome, not only Renaissance and Baroque. Here, Convent of Buon Pastore, another masterpiece on the west. The building itself went through several adaptive reuse phases already. So, from religious institution and convent, it was first designed, turned into hospital, and currently houses 2 high schools, which I think in itself shows about adaptability to varied functions and vibrancy of the project and spatial resilience of his architecture. Although we clearly see the plan that is very disciplined and symmetrical, three-dimensional experience is different. Courtyard, cortile, surrounded by very light, delicate, almost moving arcades, which, to me, reach back, as I said, to Roman antiquity, but in particular to curved colonnade and Hadrian Villa, which in itself was inspired by distant places of Roman Empire, not so much the heart of Roman Empire. In the same time, next to it, we see the chapel that recalls Borromini, but interpreted in Brasini's particular way. The facade itself, again, very layered, intense regulation, from very monumental rusticated semi-columns on the ground floor to clearer, ionic, and then even with less detail, the top part. I'm skipping description here. I think it is important to say that in the evolution of his projects in general, we often see a process of formal editing, progressive simplification of the expressive language that he used. But what is the most important for me in this design driver that Brasini uses, that basically symmetries of the plan help Brasini to, as Venturi says, astonishingly composes a multitude of diverse parts into a difficult whole. The third one I called fragmentation or non-deliberate incompleteness. Why non? Because we have a building, basilica, without the dome. But initially, I think Brasini wanted to have a dome. So it is important to say. Let's look at Basilica quickly. Again, difficult site, very specific. Again, plan very disciplined, and Brasini himself mentions San Gallo and Michelangelo as sources, and also mentions Vitruvian principles that he wanted to look at rather than Baroque and Bernini. We also, I think, can see clearly Bramante and Raphael. We can see Pantheon itself, but I think we can see medieval architecture, early Christian exploration of circular plan and cross plan that he applied in the basilica, and other centrally planned early Christian basilicas, churches in Rome that's the city he lived in, so those are the buildings he loved and actually saw in his daily life. In the interior, we have very powerful vaults, again, reminding us, of course, of pure classical Roman antiquity in Roman baths, in basilicas, but also, I think, Romanesque architecture with strong walls that replaced wooden ceilings of early Christian basilicas, and that required buttressing all the time. Buttressing is, again, one of the characteristics of Rome as a city. All of that Brasini successfully used together and combines in his architecture. The main facade, obviously, layered entrance portico with a convex platform, very, very layered and broken pediment, curves very interestingly applied, basically from straight segments of small wings. So we see that he produces the effects of curvature while resisting the use of the literal form of curve at all. His building absorb and transform, I think, the city's accumulated layers of history, and in the same time produce something new and characteristic of him. I would like to conclude by saying that these three principles transfer from the scale of architecture to the urban scale as well. He designed a bridge, Ponte Flaminio, seemingly calm, rhythmical arches. We slowly climb up, almost like we are climbing to Campidoglio. But look what's happening on the top. On the bridge, the feeling is unreal, especially if you decide to cross it as a pedestrian. Freestanding columns of varying heights, some unfinished or finished, but intentionally low, so that they look like unfinished, created the atmosphere almost of an archaeological site. Again, the idea of architecture remaining open to time and capable of absorbing future layers and readings like the Rome itself and antiquities of Rome, allow history to fill it in. That layering in his fragmentation, I think, is important. His buildings somehow follow that very strong axis of Rome, Via Flaminia, which is extension of Piazza del Popolo and Via del Corso. I think this is also not accidental. He was very aware of Baroque and Bernini and all colored in violet main urban moves and squares that Bernini designed. But I think he was actually more attuned to late 16th century plan of Rome, Sixtus V and Domenico Fontana, with straight axes that they introduced in the city to reconnect key basilicas, marked nodes and obelisks, and restore aqueducts. In his album of his projects, published in 1917, so 1916, Paolo Orano wrote about Brasini and quotes him. He wants our Rome to reconnect. No unity of vision governs the renovation. That was his critique. In the same time, he is talking about Rome that is born in the age of science, together with the criterion of solidity and harmony. Age of science and conscience, where everything is more internal, says Brasini, and Orano quotes him. I think we can talk about Brasini's awareness of Baroque, not only inspired by Catholic Church contra-Reformation and Reformation, but rather scientific discoveries that happened at that time. Understanding of the world that is not based on perfect circle of the Renaissance anymore, because we now learned that basically universe and Earth as part of that universe is not in the center of the universe. Sun is in the center. The Earth is just one of the planets that is following elliptical path, and we have telescope to watch that and follow it. So dynamism becomes important in architecture, and elliptical shapes important in architecture. And this little church on the right-hand side is important and relevant because it is happened to be in the line of Via Flaminia key movement. So Brasini somehow, I think, tries to bring all those stories together and tell us the story of Rome in his buildings in Rome. If we look at those three key strategies that we decided to emphasize through his buildings, every single one of them has direct relevance to, I think, modern architecture and modern architects and our students who teach about architecture, who learn about architecture today. Contextual and spatial dynamics is designing not just a building, but experiences that connect people, movement, and place. We saw he knew how to do that well. Plan volume dynamism, again, discipline of the plan is a platform for volumetric innovation and not seen as a limitation in his case. Fragmentation or incompleteness and embracing the fragment basically open-ended prefigures current discussion about circularity, reuse, and building as palimpsest. So I think Brasini's work offers not a style-related model, but a spatial and methodological one. This is deeply relational, temporally open, and grounded in the knowledge of place. These principles remain sharply relevant for contemporary designers who navigate complex sites, shifting programs, and the urgent need to build with both memory and future transformation in mind. Thank you. I hope I was almost on time.